Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus Today. Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you're driving along in your car or your truck, or put in those earbuds and listen to it in public transport. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that I was only recently made aware of, and that is that there are certain countries around the world, and collectively they're the countries that supply the bulk of the illegal refugees or illegal aliens, illegal people migration, and refugee and asylum claimants. So these countries are the major source of these people movements. And I didn't realize, but once one of their citizens makes an application for asylum anywhere else in the world, then their citizenship is in effect automatically cancelled. So let's suppose, for example, I don't know, a Chinese or an Iranian citizen claims asylum in Britain, say, or France or something like that. Then and their asylum claim fails, then they can't be deported back to China or back to Iran or wherever. So at this point, the person becomes effectively stateless. And based on international human rights law, the country that they've applied for asylum in, even if their claim's been rejected or their refugee claim's been rejected, at the point at which they're stateless, that is, the Chinese government's cancelled their citizenship, the point at which they're stateless, then you have to be able to stay in that place where you made the asylum application. So it's a massive scam. It's a monstrous scam because it no longer matters. When a Chinese citizen or an Iranian citizen or many other places, once they have applied for asylum, that's it. Whether their claim is rejected or not, they have to stay according to it. Now, this is a very, very convenient arrangement here because it means that the majority of people who arrive claiming asylum, whether their claim is a refugee status, whether their claim is successful or not, or has any merit or not, it doesn't matter. They have to now stay because this is where they applied for asylum. Now, there are a few things with asylum and refugee status. The way it's meant to work, the purpose of it when it's designed, is you go from wherever you have it's meant to be warfare. Originally was what it was considered to be, or the knock-on effects of warfare, for example, widespread famine or something like that. You need to go to the nearest safe country. So either the country where there is no war, or where there is no direct persecution, or where there's food supplies being made available, such as United Nations refugee camps, things like that. That's how it's meant to work. So the nearest safe country. But that's not how it works anymore. Now the globalists and their people movement goons are involved, then people are being aggressively aided and abetted by the globalist people movement machine, so that people are moving, across, traveling through and across 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 countries to get to the place of their choice. And the place of their choice is a place where government handouts and benefits are the most generous, and therefore it's the least productive. People from around the world are moving to the place where the handouts are the most generous. If it was the most productive people who are moving, you'd say, well, gee, that's maybe not such a problem, but it's not. It's the least productive that are being moving around because they want the freebie handouts. So that's number one, this idea of going to the nearest safe country, that's disappeared into the ether. It doesn't exist anymore. And the globalists are actively dismantling that structure, if you like, of refugee and asylum claims. So now people are traveling many thousands of miles to. The next thing is that the bar has been substantially lowered for what asylum and refugee status is. So it used to be, for example, warfare, things like that, or say political persecution, and that was really based on if the communists took over and you were being persecuted, then you could escape to the nearest capitalist country. And that was like the original concept behind it. But that's all fallen by the wayside now. So if you look at the categories that have been added into justification for claiming refugee or asylum status, it's now down to something like you want a better life. That's it. You can just say, I want a better life. That suddenly makes you a refugee or an asylum seeker. I want a better life. My government doesn't give me free housing or anything, but you guys do give out free housing. So I'll come here because I want a better life. Now, that was never conceived as a basis for refugee or asylum status. If you want a better life, then you go through the proper channels and you say, this is how I'm going to be a benefit to your economy. I'm a qualified, builder, or I don't know, carpenter, or something or other. You've got a qualified rocket scientist. You've got a qualification that economy needs, wants, and is useful, and again needed in that economy. But that's all gone by the wayside. So you don't have to make those claims anymore. And the amount of illiterate peasants that are pouring into all over the West, illegally or otherwise. If they can't bring them in illegally, as they are, say, in the United States, in the case of Australia, they just massively gin up the legal migration. They do that by lowering the bar. So the amount of illiterate peasants pouring into Australia who've got no qualification, they've got nothing to offer. None of them are needed. The amount of the hundreds of thousands of them pouring into Australia, all because the bar of immigration has been lowered to zero. And again, I go back to the big migration waves of say, not so much the late 40s and early 50s, because they were out of some of the European refugee camps after World War II, which was a very unique and monumental event. But people who, say, came in the 1960s to Australia, or the late 50s through to the early 70s, that type of that era. If you look at the manifests of the migrants that came, this is legal migrants, I mean, the migrants that came, they were, things like carpenters and bricklayers, architects, nurses, accountants, and so on. With fully recognised international qualifications and credentials and certifications. They spoke English. They came from English-speaking countries. Almost, not all of them did. Even the ones that didn't, their English was pretty good. Well, certainly better than you see today. Not that everybody did speak English, by the way, they didn't. But they were, in the main, if you looked at every 100, this is in that period, every 100 migrants that came through, you were looking at really a handful that did not speak English. And even the ones that didn't speak English were exclusively, white and Christian, and that's it. So their chances of integrating quickly were much greater than the people that are coming in today who are quite determined not to integrate. So we've seen many changes in what constitutes a refugee or an asylum claimant. It's down to, as I mentioned, I just want a better life. That's it. You meet the requirement. So these people are coming in now, and in large numbers. But I didn't know, and I'm sure most people don't know, that for every Chinese citizen who comes to the West to apply for asylum, the minute that person applies for asylum in Australia or Britain or then their Chinese citizenship no longer exists. So even if they fail in their asylum claim, which once upon a time quite a few of them did, they can't be deported anymore. There's nowhere to send them, because the Chinese government will say, or the Iranian government and others will say, no, we're not taking them back. We're not going to let them get off the plane. So that's it. We're not even going to take them in and arrest them or put them in prison or something. We're not even going to let the plane land, if this sort of thing. So they're absolutely point blank refusing to take these people back. Now, the smaller economies of such Australia, can't really do much about that. The Americans could, say President Trump could say, all right, then, well, if you won't take your citizens back, then I'm going to slap tariffs on you. The Americans do have the power to do something about that, and the Chinese would have no choice other than to back down. But on the Iranians and other countries. So I did if you look at all the countries that have this automatic cancellation of citizenship, they also happen to be a primary source of refugee and asylum claimants. that just seems to be really strange to me. It's almost like it was orchestrated or set up this way, just to make sure that, given these people, that the countries are not at war, there's no like famines or anything like that going on, or that sort of stuff, and so they've got no reason to really claim asylum or refugee status. Even if they did, there are countries that are adjacent to China or Iran that they could go to seek asylum there, but they're not. They're choosing to travel thousands of miles across multiple countries to get only to the white Christian West, or what was once white and Christian, and making their claims. And then, because they're such a big source of people, brown and black people, that the globalists want to move around, isn't it incredibly convenient that these China and India and China and Iran and other places, they won't take these folks, but no, we don't want them back. Now you could say, well, if they don't want to be citizens of this country, China, then why would we want them back? They're going to be disgruntled troublemakers, and we don't want them around. We'd rather get rid of them. But I don't know. Are the Chinese and Iranians getting rid of their prison population this way, for example, or are they encouraging people who have views that may not be deemed as sympathetic to the Communist Party or something like? Are they trying to get rid of? Are they selectively pushing people out the door and helping them get to the West, and then refusing to take, that sort of thing? So I don't know, but I certainly see this as a part of a wider globalist orchestrated arrangement here, and the number of countries that won't take citizens back, including places from Africa, are growing by the day. So I'm pretty sure that the globalists are leaning on these places to force a situation where the Western governments and courts and various NGOs or whatever can say, well, look, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. We just have to keep them here, which is what they wanted in the first place and wanted anyway. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.